Hey there, everybody. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here with the Green Film Festival San Francisco. Welcome back. As you know, we try to kind of program some of the most interesting, cool, um, documentaries and narrative films from around the world that deal with, our planet Earth and the way that we interact as human beings. So, you just had a chance to see the wonderful documentary "We Are Tenacious," and we're lucky enough to have director producer Ash Price here and executive producer Matthew Bennett here. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, as I was just sharing before we started off, this is a film that was programmed at another festival, and I was like, oh well, that sounds like a cool film, and so it was excited to kind of see it, and then everything work out to kind of be able to bring it here to San Francisco. Um, so, I imagine many in the audience are wondering this, there are lots of stories to kind of tell out there in the world, but to kind of decide to pick up a camera and make a film is a different endeavor. What was the kind of catalyst that you knew that there was this kind of larger story that you wanted to capture?
Uh, Interesting question. I would say the catalyst that really kind of started this all, like the real impetus for going out there and filming, it was a bit of an exploration for me. So I'm trans, and as a trans woman, like I had been hunting for stories that could really highlight our community, show our community in a different light than what traditional media has kind of presented. And I had come across the Tenacious Unicorn Ranch a few years earlier while they were in their infancy. So like before they'd actually, like formed and kind of like become the actual ranch that they became. I had met various members talking about the project, and they were curious at that time if I had wanted to, like come up and document some of that process, like the building of it process. Now I was kind of stuck in a different film or different film project during that period in time. And so like I put it on the back burner, finished that project up, hit them up, and then suddenly, like I'm out there at the ranch and we're out there filming. Um, a lot of this was kind of also a COVID therapy project for me. I mean, like as Matt has said, um, off camera here a second ago, Matt was saying that I basically shot and produced this by myself, shot, produced, directed. It was one of those very small crew documentaries as they tend to be these days. And, like just kind of caught in a time in a moment. Yeah.
And once you were there and started filmmaking, you know, what are some of the kind of challenges just in that kind of environment, I guess, and were there things that kind of surprised you in the story as the story developed that you didn't really expect?
Yes. Yes to all of the above. So like the real challenge when coming into a space like the Tenacious Unicorn Ranch is that it is incredibly tight quarters. So we're talking like a 1,400 square foot house with I don't know, like anywhere between 9 and 14 people in it at any given time. That's pretty packed in there. That's pretty tight quarters. And to top that all off, like everybody there is trans and trans individuals. Like myself, we all go through our varying degrees of issues and challenges, and that just adds to the social component, that social dynamic that already exists. With the ranchers before I ever set foot, like set foot in their space. So they have, like they have a lot of interesting dynamic relationships. As you saw in the film, there's a polycule. There's actually a couple polycules that existed. So those kind of interwove throughout the the community that they had there, which added to some of the complications, I would say, later on. And then in addition to that, there's kind of like the trust building aspect. So, like I am an outsider, I'm trans, but I'm also an outsider coming into the community. And that does present a major challenge.
Not, not to
I
mention the weapons.
Oh my God. Yeah. Not to mention the weapons, not to mention the, like the, the fact that pretty much everybody there was armed. Um, oh, I think there was maybe one or two exceptions, but I'm pretty sure everybody there had a gun, like a sidearm or a rifle. I don't know. It was a crazy experience.
Basically, as soon as Ash got there, she was under siege by these 3%ers too, right? I mean,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was getting to that. Um, I was working my way over to that aspect of the story. So when when I showed up on the ranch, I think I had a total of like five quote unquote, like quote unquote calm days, like normal days where it was like folks just, like out on the ranch, like we're doing ranch stuff. We're, like working with the alpaca, just interacting with the community. And then shortly after that, the incident that we've labeled kind of as the siege in the film happened. And it was kind of like just being thrust into a moment. And like hanging on for dear life because like sometimes you go into a documentary with the best laid plans, right? I don't know if you've seen the documentary Honeyland, but my like original vision for the film was like, oh, like maybe we could do like queer Honeyland, like out in the Colorado Rockies. It wasn't, like I want to go out there and hang out with, like militia and like armed folks. It was more kind of just like, a holistic exploration. But it's certainly evolved in an incredibly rapid manner. I mean, I still have whiplash from it as I've been talking to Matt about. It's just been an experience and a half, like being a trans person going into a small rural community is scary. Being surrounded by guns is scary. I think that there's, like a very real truth being told here, and that's the difficulty of the queer experience kind of on the frontiers of the United States. Yeah. Or around the world, really, at this point.
And can you all talk about like what was your collaborative relationship like? I guess in the sense of Matthew, at what point in time did you get kind of involved in the film, and then how did you all work together? If like once you made it to the editing room, of like what was that process like?
um, well, so along the way, we had seen my development team had spotted the unicorns out there on in the media, and we wanted to figure out what project may be there with them. And so my team reached out to Penny, as you all know from the movie, and Penny said, "Oh, everything goes through our filmmaker Ash." And so we reached out to Ash, and there was an immediate synergy. We didn't know that the militia had happened. We didn't know half of it. All we knew was that there was some really cool women out there trying to raise alpaca in the middle of nowhere, and we thought, oh, we got to tell that story just like Ash did, right? But we were just behind. But the great news is that uh, I ended up having these conversations with Ash, discovered what a real artist she is, and our relationship really sort of blossomed over the course of the next year at least. And I think that there was this great uh, tool where I said, okay, we want to be executive producer and partner for you and support your artistry. But as a trans person telling the story, there's no way that I was going to step in and get in the way of that. But really, I think that there was a really wonderful platform for communication and creative collaboration. When we saw dailies, we saw footage that had been shot way before, and there was a constant process of my being able to weigh in. Having made a zillion nonfiction docs before, I was able to sort of put a little bit of thought into, oh, this might be helpful. But then the big thing, and I'm sure Ash will will agree, is that as she and her editor had come up with a cut, and then this thing happened, this moment when everything went south with the unicorns and they lost the ranch. And then I said, oh, we need to film that. Sad as it is, it's the story. It's what really separates it. And so we went out there and had together and had really what I would say is the most traumatic piece of the whole process, because it was just devastating from your toes, devastating. It hurt. And God bless Ash, who had this wish to make this uplifting movie. We just told the truth. This is a truthful picture, and it ends up, because of it, I'm going to get kind of teary. It ends up to me being that much more inspiring, because when Penny says, "Let me tell you about tenacity," I go, "Oh, well, we know she's still in it. We know she's still at it." So that was how our I think, Ash and I are going to work together for many, many years. I guarantee, as long as I live many years. But no, we're definitely attached to the hips.
Don't say that, Matt.
I know. I adore her, and I think that her talent is phenomenal. And my goal is to get her a bigger crew next time.
Bigger than one. That's a good
Yeah.
goal. I like this. I like this. Bigger than one is always great.
No, we've already had a bigger crew on another project. We had a crew of 4. So come on,
Yeah.
we're getting there.
Four's an evolution. Here we go. I like this.
You know, one of the kind of the discussions that's out there in kind of the documentary community is, all about, collaboration, particularly with subjects and things. And given the kind of collective nature, with the ranch, is that, Ash, how much did you see those that lived at the ranch as kind of collaborators, or did they have say in the film, or was it one of those things where they just trusted, the story that you wanted to kind of create? And, did they have like feedback during the process, or, how did that all kind of work out?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think that is the conversation going on in documentary these days. I tend to be a proponent of the quote unquote like holistic storytelling, which is to say that, like I'm completely transparent in my process, at least to, like the greatest degree that I can be. That means, like everything from kind of discussing story points in post with the subjects to making sure that that they feel like their story is accurately represented through screenings. It was definitely a difficult process on on We Are Tenacious. I think, how many cuts did we go through? I mean, it has to have been north of like 14,
Oh yeah,
14 or 15.
way more.
Yeah, and that's like that's with major like narrative changes and stuff, and like the evolution of the story as it kind of grew. A lot of this was also trying to recognize that like there's real trauma that's present here. There's real trauma that is being dealt with both in front of and behind the camera. And that when we're telling these stories, like as important as they are, it's also important not to re-traumatize and like cause more trouble for the subjects down the line. That's particularly poignant when we kind of like approach the story of like Bonnie and Penny's relationship. As you can see that disintegrate over the course of the film, like we have 2 people at the beginning that are best friends. And when I met them for the very first time, they were basically inseparable. But like at a certain point, about I would say like 20 days into production, like you could tell that real separation had begun, and like that they had consciously started to kind of move away from each other. and that was hard to watch. And like you get sometimes you get caught in the fallout as a filmmaker. You get caught in the middle of it because like um I think it's very easy for the subjects in this particular film to relate to me because like I'm trans, we have a shared experience, we went through a shared trauma, and
Mm.
that bonds people together, whether you like it or not. Like you come out of that close to those individuals. And I think um to a certain degree that was influential on how I told the story, right? And I know Matt and I had many conversations down the line as we were trying to really hone in this, like this final aspect, the like the like at our very tail in Act Three, as we're kind of bringing everything to a close, we had to really have this heart to heart conversation about how do we rein in the story now that everything has come to an end,
Mm.
right? And how do we do that in a way that is accurately representative of the emotions of the time? Like there's a lot in that particular scene that obviously got left on the cutting room floor. And it was a lot of pain and trauma. Like it involved Penny going to the ER. It involved like a bunch of roadside emergencies and random things. And
Crazy.
I yeah,
Yeah.
I um an incredibly expensive bill at Perkins. um, you know
Yeah. That
sorry,
wasn't the most traumatic thing, by the way. I just want to say.
I know. There just the litany of things. I mean, like I ended up with like a concussion at some point
Yeah,
during the shoot. Like it was a lot. But I mean, at the end of this, I feel like it also brought about the closure that we needed in the piece, and really gave us a film that speaks to kind of our deeper truths as humans, not just as trans people, right?
for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I think that's it ultimately is what makes it the most relatable is that we see that everyone has flaws. Chris, you bring up like a real hot button topic. We were just talking about this yesterday. This notion that, well, we could have made a film that was much more a really feel good film. And it would have been so appealing to a much broader audience, and it would have gotten better distribution money, whatever it is. You know what I mean? But that's what we do when we make, and I make a lot of it, what we would call documentary television. I come from the world. I've made it many seasons, 13 seasons of Deadliest Catch, right? So that kind of world, you craft a story that feels good inside but that's because the network has commissioned you to do so. When you set out to make a documentary about a family or about a group of people or a story, it's one of discovery, legitimate discovery. And when you're able to open up and give way to that, your mind is blown. It isn't necessarily what's going to sell, but as an artist, you have to adhere to that. And that's where I just really applauded Ash and Eric, the editor, for just freaking going for it and saying, this is the story. Walter Cronkite would be proud. This is true. And it's powerful that way, though. As a distributor friend of mine said, wow, doesn't really make you feel very good, though, does it?
no, it does not.
Well, okay, but we go to the movies to be affected, to be moved. And I think this moves you.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, go ahead. Ak.
I was gonna say that's kind of the heart of the activism, really, within the piece, is that like My favorite piece of feedback that we've gotten on this whole piece from an audience member was a lady who approached me really shyly after screening, and she said, "Thank you for showing the queer community as it really is, warts and all." And I mean, at that moment, it was kind of like, I'm glad, like I am glad that we are able to have a realistic conversation about this, like. Um, Pun intended, like life isn't all rainbows and unicorns. It's right, like there are very harsh and real realities and challenges that come about within it, and that as a filmmaker and a documentary filmmaker, my job is to tell the truth, right? And not dress it up in that way. So in this particular instance, as much as I wanted this to be a happy film and my therapy project and bring it about in a way that really, like was able to speak for the trans community or the trans experience at large, I think that in a way we were able to translate that. Um, and hopefully, like in a way that a broader audience is able to understand too. I mean, because it
Ultimately,
does, yeah, it hits on those traumas.
and you brought up the notion of the subjects. We contend with this all the time. Um, we feel, and I think I know Ash and I feel the same about it, is that there is a responsibility that we have when you're making a documentary to tell the truth. And yet, there is also a responsibility to be kind and respectful to the people we're telling the story about. That doesn't mean that they are, that they should ever weigh in on the editorial, ever. That should never be, to me, it's just not what's okay. But what makes artists special in my mind is our compassion. So we're automatically going to be very aware of what isn't going to be okay to show. We would never show something that would make somebody look terrible, on TV just because it was a funny moment or a terrible moment or whatever. Why would you? Everybody has flaws. Why do you want to? We don't want to highlight those. We want to present the story. So hopefully that answers the question in a really long way.
Well, I think you guys did a great job, and it's a really special, film. So thanks again for sharing it with us. And one of the things I always kind of remind our audience is that we're the kind of grassroots street team for indie filmmakers because we're lucky enough for you guys to share your film early on in the process, and we get to help amplify that message. What are ways that folks can kind of continue to follow the film's journey, or you as kind of a filmmaker, Ash?
Oh, geez. So I believe right now we're kind of just in that process of still bouncing around to different festivals. So we have our website, which I believe is tenaciousunicornfilm.com, which is a good place to kind of check and see for updates. And then we also have our kind of like classic social media platforms and whatnot. But I would say largely right now it's, like just try and support us in the festival circuit if you see us around, like if we're screening in your town, that kind of thing. Um, Feel free to drop on by and check it out, like we're here and we're happy to talk. I also know that Penny and the rest of the ranchers are still trying to do their thing. And still can be found, I believe, on Twitter or X, I guess, as it is now. At Tenacious Unicorn Ranch, I believe, is their Twitter. So if you wanted to kind of follow them and their progress along the way too, they should still be there and still be responding. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You can go to silentcrow.com, and we'll always post updates for the film. I'm headed to Cannes in a couple of weeks to do a to the nonfiction thing that happens there, to do a big push. They're actually very excited about the Green Festival, and we might put some PR dollars behind that. And so if there's a place to just check in once in a while, it's silentcrow.com, and we'll post any and all updates on the movie.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Ash, and thank you again, Matt, and good luck with everything, and look forward to seeing what all happens.
Thank you
Hey,
so much.
sounds great. Thank you. Super appreciate it.